Good afternoon. We're going to allow a couple more minutes here for, well, actually it's right at noon, so maybe we'll go ahead and get started. My name is Bethany Neiman. I'm a branch manager here at TAPCO Credit Union. Everyone is muted today, so please utilize the chat if necessary. If you've got questions, we'll be monitoring the chat throughout. But everyone is muted. You may have been expecting Jacob today. He unfortunately had an unforeseen circumstance that won't allow him to do the budgeting basics class. So I am here to help out Jacob. Let's take a look here. Give me just 1 minute. Sorry there. Okay, I just want to make sure everyone can see my presentation screen. Like I said, we are muted, so if you could just maybe write in the chat that you can see it or give me a little thumbs up, that would be great. This is the first time I've done it with this type of setup, so I just want to make sure everyone can see our presentation. And it looks like I've got a thumbs up, so yay. So yes, we will be utilizing the chat. If you've got questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I may save questions to the end. And do keep in mind this is public, so do not put personal information within the chat. Save that for later. We can meet and talk about exact personal situations. So this is budgeting basics. Again, I'm Bethany Neiman, branch manager at TAPCO Credit Union. Today, we're going to talk about three main topics: the budgeting process, reducing clutter and finding additional ways to save, and using technology to your advantage. The budgeting process. So the first one we're going to talk about is the 50-30-20 rule and what that means and how that works. Essentially, the 50-30-20 rule is taking your income and dividing it into a percentage. 50% of your income going to your needs, 30% to your wants, and 20% to your savings. So let's break that down even a little bit more. So what are your needs? 50% of your budget should be set aside for your rent or your mortgage payment. And sometimes we don't consider things that go with that. Like if you rent in a building that charges for parking, that's something to consider, as well as if you own your home and you have homeowners association dues or HOAs, that is also a basic need you need to consider. And also not forgetting about your renter's insurance or your homeowner's insurance. Part of your basic needs would also be your mandatory bills. So car payments, groceries, healthcare, minimum payments for credit cards or personal loans. Those are all part of your basic needs. And if you think about that 50% pie, 30% of that should be going towards living, your rent, and 20% of that should be going towards your mandatory bills. Something to consider is if you're spending more than 50% of your income on your basic needs, it may be a time to downsize your lifestyle. And I know that can be really hard to hear and really hard to consider, but maybe that brings in a roommate or changing how you shop for groceries. Maybe you're not going to the high-end grocery store all the time and you're going to a more budget-friendly grocery store. So those are things to consider when you're looking at your income. 30% of your income should be going to your wants. So these are things that maybe aren't absolutely essential, but we still want to spend our money on them. Electronics, concerts, TV subscriptions. How many TV subscriptions do we have? So those are things that we want to consider when we're doing our budget. Eating out or gym memberships. And I know for some folks, gym memberships can be very touchy. That may not be a want. That might be a basic need. So you know, what is a want for you? Vacations is definitely a want for me. So I have to think about that when I'm creating my budget. And then 20% of your income should be going to savings. You should have at least 3 months of emergency savings set aside. And that's a real lofty goal, especially when you're first starting out. And we're going to break out how you can get there in a little bit. When you're thinking about your savings, that also includes your retirement. So are you putting money aside for your 401k or potentially an IRA or an individual retirement account? investments, or even saving extra money to put towards loans. So not just your normal minimum payment, but just a little bit more to help pay that off sooner. So that's something to consider when you're talking about your savings. So these are the basics on the 50, 30, 20 rule. So let's look at that 50, 30, 20 rule kind of broken down a little bit more. We're going to use the example of Bob. Bob's income is set up here. So Bob's income is his net income on his paycheck. So what is net income? Most people think about their income and they hear two different words. They hear gross and they hear net. Your gross income is how much you make before your employer has to take out things like taxes or health insurance or maybe your 401k. What's left over is your net income. So when we're looking at our budgets, we're going to look at our net income, what we're actually taking home in our paycheck every single week or month or however you're getting paid. Also to consider is maybe other income Bob gets. So does Bob get income from a renter or child support? Or maybe in this case, I'm thinking $200 a month. Maybe Bob does Grubhub or Instacart for some extra cash. So Bob's income, after all his taxes are paid and after his 401k is paid, he takes home each month $3,200. So let's see where Bob's spending that money. Bob's got a really nice spreadsheet here, and this spreadsheet is available through our partners at GreenPath, and I'm going to send that link out at the end of the presentation in the chat so you can utilize the spreadsheet here. So Bob has his spreadsheet or has his expenses budgeted in several different categories, and one of them being housing. So Bob's figured in his rent or his mortgage, whatever his is, and then he's also figured out his insurance, utilities, cable and internet, maybe you still have a landline, that item in there. And then other housing expenses would be things like maybe property taxes or HOA dues, or maybe your landlord charges you more because you have a pet in your home. Things like that could be considered in other housing expenses. Transportation. In Bob's case, he's not using any public transportation. And when you think about public transportation, that wouldn't just be like buses or trains, but also ride sharing. Ride sharing's gotten very popular for going just to and from work, or maybe to and from, a friend's house because you don't want to drive up to Seattle or something like that. Ride sharing can be something you also need to budget for. Bob has also set aside in his budget money for gas, for just gas to put in his vehicle. And as we know, that amount can fluctuate, but he's got kind of a set amount that he's kind of maintaining for his gas. Maintenance for his vehicle. I think a lot of folks, we know we got to pay for oil changes, but we don't think about budgeting for oil changes. And that keeps going up as well. So how much a year does it cost for you to change the oil in your vehicle? And then take that number and divide it by 12 and set aside in your budget each month for your car maintenance. Or gosh, is this going to be the year for new tires? You might have to budget for those big expenses. Health premiums. We don't always think about budgeting for health, but it's so important to budget for both our physical and our mental health. So, your monthly prescriptions, or maybe insurance if your employer, pays a portion of your insurance and you have to come up with the difference, or just additional medical expenses like co-pays. Okay. Bob has also budgeted for food. And when I'm working with individuals on their budget, this is where people tend to underestimate how much they spend all the time. I think I know how much I spend on groceries each month, but when I actually look at my receipts and tally it up, it does tend to be more than what I've actually budgeted for. Meals out. When you're thinking about meals out, that's not just, dinner out. That might be coffee or maybe meeting with friends for happy hour once in a while. So you have to really consider that when you're creating your budget. And then you've got items like your personal items like childcare or babysitting, or maybe you give money to a family member here or there to help them out in their situation. Entertainment. Do you like going to movies or concerts? Those are all things you have to think about when you're coming up with your budget. Or those sneaky subscriptions. I think if you sat and thought about the things you're subscribing to, streaming services, like TV, music, or maybe those fun boxes you get in the mail that you open up fun things, those all add up and need to be budgeted for. And I really like this budget because it includes pet care. So many budgets that I've worked with individuals on, they forget about their pets, but they need to eat and be taken care of just like we do. I recently got a new puppy. I forgot to add to my budget how much veterinary bills are in the beginning of getting a new puppy, all those new shots that they need. So I had to readjust my budget. You also have the category of other, which would be things like school costs. So are you helping someone go back to school? Not only is there tuition, but you've got to buy books and supplies, maybe a special computer program. Those are all things to be considered. And then you have your other payments that you're paying. So maybe you have personal loans or credit cards. Those would fall into the other. And then other expenses are, if it's not categorized here, but you're spending it on a regular basis, you want to calculate that into your other expenses. So on the previous slide, we saw Bob has a take-home income of $3,200 a month. And in this example, Bob is spending about $2,800 a month. So Bob is spending less than he's making, which is great. That's the goal, right? But if Bob found that he was spending more than what he was making, if he really sat down and realistically went through his budget and looked at where he's spending his money, and he's spending more than he's making each month, he could look at each one of these categories and look for areas to maybe spend a little less, and maybe multiple areas on spending a little less. There's some things that you maybe not be able to cut. You may not be able to cut healthcare needs. You need that monthly prescription. You're not going to be able to cut that from your budget, but maybe you can find a pharmacy where it's less than where you're paying right now. I don't think we always think about the shopping around for our prescriptions and finding a pharmacy that you can pay a little bit less than maybe where you're normally going. Those are things to think about when you're trying to readjust your budget. Another budgeting option, we talked about the 50-30-20 plan. This one here is a zero-based budget, and this is a little bit different of a concept than I think a lot of us are familiar with. You hear a lot of times pay yourself first, so pay your savings first. This is kind of the opposite. This is pay your savings last, which is a bit different than what we're used to saying. But when you don't have necessarily a lot of money left over each month, you make just about what you spend, you may want to consider a zero-based budget, meaning everything that you have left over, you're going to put in savings. So this case gives Bob a nice little cushion of $348 every month to put towards savings. But what if it was less than that? What if Bob only had $50 left over at the end of the month after everything he has expensed for? Bob would want to then put that into the savings account and start fresh with a $0 or zero amount each month in his budget. So this is kind of the zero budget rule. Like I said, a little bit different than the philosophy of pay yourself first, but like we had talked about a minute ago, saving for unexpected expenses or retirement is so important. Even if it's just a little bit, this is a great way to get that process started. Those are just two budgeting examples. There are so many out there, and you kind of have to find the ones that work for you. I know someone who likes to, withdraw their paycheck in cash and then put it in envelopes for each single category so they can save up that way. They need to see the visual of this is the amount of money I have, not a penny more. This is it. That budgeting plan really works for them. Let's talk about ways that we can reduce clutter and find savings, okay? I like to use the SMART goal when I'm deciding how I'm going to start saving money or maybe start paying off an expense in a little bit sooner than I maybe planned to. SMART goals are great for not only budgeting, but for career or personal goals. You can find a lot of great templates online for SMART goals that will help you break down the SMART goals specifically. So what are SMART goals? SMART goals are specific, they are measurable, they are achievable, they are realistic, and they are time-based or timely goals. So let's use SMART goals to decide how we are going to pay off our credit card a little bit sooner. Okay, that's a great goal. I want to pay off my credit card soon. Great goal, but it's not very specific. So I want to pay my credit card off in full. That's specific, but it's not measurable. So how can I add to that goal to make it measurable? So I want to pay off my, well, I take that back. It is measurable because I will know my credit card is paid off in full when I have reached that goal. Is it achievable? That's a really great thing to think about when you're creating your budget. So if I pay $300 a month, I can achieve my goal, but maybe that's too much right now. Those are things to consider. So when you're making a goal, is that goal going to be achievable for you? So if I pay $300 off, if I pay $300 towards my credit card each month, is that achievable for me? Because is that realistic? So do I have the budget to put $300 a month towards my credit card debt? Those are the things to consider when you're creating your goal. Can you realistically make that goal? And is it timely? So if I do $300 a month towards my credit card, I'll have it paid off in 10 months. That's a time-based goal. That would be a SMART goal. If I put $300 a month towards my credit card, I will have it paid off in 10 months. It's specific. It's measurable because my credit card will be paid off. It's achievable because I have figured out that I've budgeted $300 a month. It's realistic and it's timely. I know that I'm going to have it done within a specific period of time. I think sometimes just saying, I'm going to pay off my credit card doesn't give you a really great plan of action for creating that goal. Like I said, SMART goals are very popular. There's a lot of worksheets online if you Google SMART goals that will help walk you through. Or you can just write out the acronym and start with your goal. When I'm creating a SMART goal, I start with what's my overall plan, and then I work through each section of the acronym to make it very achievable and relatable for me. Technology is a really great way to help you reach budgeting goals. Mobile banking. If you're not utilizing your financial institution's mobile banking, start today. Anyone with a smartphone can utilize the mobile banking. And I like mobile banking because you can look at your accounts in real time. So you're at the store, you're debating that big screen TV. Is now the time to buy it? You can take a look at your account online to see if that you've got the funds for that money. You can transfer to and from your savings and your checking or checking to savings through mobile banking. I like mobile banking a lot for creating alerts. So if my checking account drops below an amount that I'm just not comfortable with, I want my financial institution to alert me through mobile banking. That's a great way. I can also chat with my financial credit union representatives through mobile banking. So if I've got a quick question and I don't want to call in or swing into the branch, that's a really great service. Bill pay. If you're not utilizing your financial institution's bill pay, start doing that today as well. It's a great way to save time and money. I know a lot of bill pays will allow you to upload your bill directly to your bill pay. So I can see my credit card statement within my financial institution's bill pay and know exactly how much I need to pay each month. Plus, I don't like all the clutter. I don't know if your house is like mine, but it's like stacks of mail are everywhere. I don't want the clutter and I don't want the paper, to be honest with you. So I find it as to be kind of a little bit more eco-friendly as well. And the great thing about bill pay is you can set up reminders again, just like alerts. So I know I need to pay my electric bill. I know I need to pay it by this time. It'll send me an alert to remind me to do so. So I don't have to try to remember those kinds of bills. There's a lot of really great apps out there as well. Mint.com and GreenPath both have great budgeting apps within them, or budgeting apps within their websites. They also have tools on credit as well. You can, with Mint, you can upload, if you have accounts at several different financial institutions, you can upload those all into one place, which makes it so convenient for looking at all your accounts together. That's a really great tool when you're figuring out budgeting and you've got accounts maybe at a couple different financial institutions. Utilizing Google Docs or Excel spreadsheets are another great way. If, like I don't want another app, I've got enough apps, just taking a Google Doc or an Excel spreadsheet and getting organized that way. You can put different tabs for each month. You can kind of come up with your template. It'll do the subtraction of, you put your income in and subtract out your bills, and it'll show you how much you have left over. If technology is not your thing, that's okay. Just taking a notepad and writing out your bills. When you write things down, you tend to stick with them. And so by writing it down or creating a spreadsheet, you're going to stick to your goals and be more likely to follow through with what you want to accomplish. Moving forward. So, I've never heard in my entire career someone saying, man, I wish I wouldn't have saved so much money. It's just the worst having all this money I've saved. So start saving now, even if that is $5 a month, if that's what you can afford, $5 a month, put it in your savings account, put it somewhere where you're not going to be tempted to touch it. I know with TAPCO's online banking, I can hide accounts from myself. So I could move money into my savings account, but then not see it when I log into my app. So that temptation, if that's something that you're tempted to, then it's not tempted to touch it, which is really, really great. And then once you create a budget, once you create a SMART goal, stick to it. And that's really hard when you're starting out, but once you get the flow and once you get going and give yourself a little bit of grace, you're going to find it's a lot easier to stick to it. Look at your budget weekly. Did eggs go up? And now you got to adjust your budget price. Did gas prices change? Now you need to adjust your budget. Those are the kinds of things that you need to look at your budget weekly and adjust for. Pay with cash if you're tempted to overspend. So like I mentioned, I know someone who puts money in an envelope. If they don't have the money in the envelope, they're not going to spend it. And that's a really great process as well. I have a friend who also, instead of physically putting money in an envelope, she has an app that she uses, an envelope money app type system. Get a budget buddy. I know that sounds so silly, but it's true. Get a budget buddy. So you got a gym buddy, get a budget buddy. Maybe there's someone at your work that you guys have been talking. And it's like, man, I need to save a little bit for retirement. I need to save a little bit for a vacation. And they are in the same boat that you are in. Maybe consider like, hey, we both buy coffee out each day. What if we do it one less day? We'll keep each other accountable for that. We'll text each other in the morning. Don't go to that coffee stand. Or maybe you guys eat out lunch a lot. Maybe consider reducing that by one lunch a month. Don't go crazy, just one lunch a month, and then maybe two the next. If you don't have a budget buddy that you are comfortable with at work, come into your financial institution. We would love to be your budget buddy. I know that, again, it sounds funny to say budget buddy, but we really enjoy watching members reach their financial goals, whatever it is, and everybody's is different. So if you're saving for something, we want to be here to help you and reward you and congratulate you along the way. And then again, review your budget month to month to see if things have changed. When you've reached your budget goal or you've reached your SMART goal, reward yourself with a small treat. That doesn't mean you're going to go out and, buy some big fancy new wardrobe, but you reward yourself with maybe a nice dinner out or something like that. Another thing to consider is to only budget for your current situation. And this one is hard because right now we're in tax season. Some of us may be expecting to receive some sort of return, but what if that return doesn't come in or doesn't come in as much as you thought it was going to be, and you've accounted for that in your budget? So don't account for things that you don't have just yet. That's really hard for individuals that may work on straight commission. Budgeting for what your base is going to be really important, and then allowing the extras to spend for maybe some wants or saving for the future. And be confident. You've got this. It's once you get going and you find what method works for you, you've got it. You're going to maybe have a few hiccups along the way, but that's totally okay. It's easy to get back on track. It's easy to get back to your notebook, get back to your Excel spreadsheet, and follow what you've set your goals out to be. Are there any questions that anyone wants to put into the chat in regards to budgeting? And please, like I said, don't write anything very specific because it is a public chat. So I don't want you to put an account number information or anything like that. I am going to put my information up here on the slide. It's got a phone number here and my email address. So if you've got any questions that you don't want to put in chat that you're embarrassed to ask about, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I am putting the link in here for GreenPath. GreenPath, as I had mentioned earlier, has got some really great budgeting tools there. Who use that template for Bob is in the GreenPath there. And like I said, there's a lot of, if Excel's not your thing or Google Docs is not your thing, you can even purchase pre-made formulas through companies like Etsy. Or maybe you've got a buddy who's a real Excel wizard. Any questions? I know we allocated for an hour, but I want to be timely with everyone. I'm guessing a lot of people are on lunch right now, so you want to make sure you eat your lunch too. Well, I guess if there's no further questions, like I said, if you haven't already got my phone number here or my email, please reach out to me. TAPCO does have certified financial counselors at many of our locations and through our contact centers. So if you would like to reach out to someone it's not me because I'm not in your geographical area, I'm happy to connect you with one of our certified financial counselors, either in person or over the phone, or we could do a Zoom as well. So don't think just because you can't come into a branch that we can't be of assistance. I appreciate you guys joining us today and look forward to seeing you guys again in the future for another class on financial topics. Thank you so much. Thank you, Angel. Have a great day.